right, so 10 a.m. in Australia. I think that let's start our webinar. Let's say, yeah, good morning. Actually, it's not only good morning. We have many people that are registered in our webinar that's not really from Australia. So as you can see, we have people from many parts of the world, actually eight countries in our registration. So we are very excited to be part of this webinar and have people from many different locations. So I would say not just good morning, it would be good evening for the guys in Latin America, and yeah, afternoon for someone, and morning for us here. So thanks for joining us in this webinar. All right, so my name is Marco Costa. I'm the Managing Director of Aquila Australia. Our company is a global management consulting firm with clients based in 20 countries around the world. So before we start, I would like to introduce the two other panelists with us here today. I will start with Rafael Sobreira. So he is an associate partner of Aquila Group. He worked for many years as an executive in the largest Latin American bank, Itaú. And he currently leads projects in our clients in Latin America. So hello, Rafael.
Hello, good morning, Australia. Here in Brazil is good evening, almost good night. I'm glad to be here, Marco.
Thanks. And the other panelist is Claudia Bessas. So she is also an associate partner of Aquila and had already worked in 10 countries around the world. And she's currently assisting our clients in Europe. Hello, Claudia. Sorry, Claudia, you are in the mute. Yeah.
Hello, thanks for the invitation. It's always a great pleasure. But next time I will choose the time and schedule it.
Yeah, sorry about that. So Claudia is in London, and in London this time is 1 a.m. So I'm really sorry about that. All right, so for all the participants, please feel free to put any questions that may arise during the webinar. We have here in the bottom, you can see the Q&A. So you can use the Q&A function to put questions anytime. The idea is that we'll have 45 minutes of discussion among the panelists. And then at the end, we'll leave an extra 15 minutes to answer the questions or to have some further discussions about the topic. Also, after the webinar, we'll send you, for all the participants, all relevant links related to the webinar, including the recording. So this is being recorded. It is also being recorded in YouTube. So we will have these two options in YouTube, and also we'll send a link. All right, so let's begin. So as you know, our topic is crisis management, and actually we will be really focusing on the war room. So yeah, it's already almost 2 months that we started this crisis that we are facing, and it's really everyone has already made some kind of war room or some kind of crisis management in your business. It's really taking some examples instead of really going to theory and talking a lot about what is a war room and so on. It's really about sharing good practices, sharing what people are doing around the world. So today so that's the idea. It's really to share what are the companies doing as a structural way the war room and what was done so far. So as you all know, the main goal of a war room is to eliminate and reduce any current problem that may arise during the crisis, and to keep us alive for the future. So when this is all over, we have a good structure in place. And actually, future for many business means not so far away. So future can be next week, okay, or next month, and so on. So for some business, as we know, they are really struggling to survive day by day. So we share with you some slides that just a couple of slides. The idea is to be more a round table discussion, but we share a couple of slides just to put some what are the main steps that and the main pillars that we consider for the war room. So that's the first one. So as you can see, we have 7 steps. So these 7 steps actually can be divided in 2 groups: the 1 to 4 and the 5 to 7. And then 1 to 4. I'll not go to the details in each one of the items. But in each, as we are at the end of April, as I said before, we would imagine that everyone should already cover some of these topics before. So we really need to understand the requirements, the required measures that we need to put. That's okay, sorry. So the first one is really, as you know, a committee, define what's the governance around the crisis management. As I said, everyone has already done something like that. Come to the precautionary measures. So what are the emergency measures that we need to do as quick as possible? Step 3, operational and financial follow-up. So what kind of controls you need to put in place? And step 4, the quick actions. Here we are not talking about actions for weeks or months. It will be like the ones that we need to follow up on a daily basis. It's really daily deliverables and with quick and focused actions on them. And then the steps 5 to 7, that's the recovery plan. That's already looking for the future, as I said. So what will be the situation after the crisis? So we need to be prepared and already take some structural actions in order to be ready for the recovery. So let's start sharing. So maybe I will include Rafael. Can you share with us some of your initial thoughts about your experience? I know that you worked in many war rooms in Latin America during the last 2 months. So can you share with us a little bit of your experience?
Yeah, sure. I'll stress a little bit more the number 4, which is quick actions and just do it. But in many cases, when we start a project in a company, there are some areas and topics that are very difficult to promote, change, or establish any kind of transformation. That's why I'm going to stress the number 4, quick actions, because sometimes it's difficult to implement actions. Well, why it is difficult to implement actions? Usually, it is related to bureaucracy to approve a structural transformation. It could be a transformation, a change in the commercial structure, service level of a process, or operational transformation. Well, anyway, it's usually a long way. Fortunately, in a crisis environment, any idea should be or must be considered, and then the barriers are usually overcome. Innovative ideas arise from, let's say, open-minded process. So it's easier to implement those actions that would be normally difficult. Well, the company must be aligned to the same direction, whatever the changes are, in order to make sure it will be viable after the crisis. The company continue to exist, so it cannot be a huge structure change for the moment. You have to remember that there is the step 5 and 7 later on. But every change must be executed quickly and efficiently. There is a very interesting example from one of our customers, our clients. Some months before the coronavirus, the company was already considering dramatic transformation in its commercial structure, and the management team had a much higher focus on the change risks rather than the benefit it would bring to the business. It's normal. Focus on the risk is okay. Well, after the COVID-19, the risk became reality. So a problem less. And the only alternative is to implement as quick as possible the plan that was under discussion for many months. During the crisis period, the leadership, supported by internal and external specialists, must stand out, just as the case I have just described. I mean, the employees are all waiting for guidance from the top management. If the leadership don't show a clear and structured guidance, the team will keep working as a business as usual mode. In other words, when we are experiencing, we are actually now experiencing a good time to execute some structural transformations, considering the change is properly done and aligned with the team. And the change has also an extra indirect benefit, because it's good, not good. It's very important to motivate the team. and the team must know and see that the company is adjusting and reacting to the crisis. This will naturally become, make the team become more motivated. The team is the key for the moment and for the future.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and probably this example that you shared with us, probably if there was no crisis, no COVID-19, they would be still talking about the risks, right? So that's pretty normal.
Or so on. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's normal. We are all risk averse, so we are all worried about taking some structural changes in our companies, or in our case, our clients' companies. But yeah, when something like that happens, like a crisis, you must do. It's not a you should do. So it's something that they needed to move quick in this change. All right, so I will now share the second and last slide. So as I said, the idea is just a couple of slides just to put out some concepts. All right, so this is what we think that should be in any war room. Some of them will be structured and have actions and have some things in all of these pillars and also in all these dot points. But and some companies will work just in more focusing one of the pillars. But from now on, our idea is really to start talking about each one of them, not in details, but having case studies about each of these pillars. So the war room usually will have from 4 to 7 members. It really depends on the company. And these people, they will organize strategic actions and follow up the current situations and trends that are not just the internal trends for their own KPIs, but also the external trends. So about what's happening in the country regarding the virus and so on. And this team, of course, they will approve the measures to be taken and define the responsibles and deadlines for the actions. Okay, so these are the 5 pillars. First one, crisis management and market intelligence. Cash flow management and finance risks. The third one, employees' health and monitoring. Fourth one, supply chain and operations. And the last one, clients' protection and transparency. Actually, some actions, every time when you do an action in a war room, actually it's not really covering, usually it's not covering just one pillar. Actually, when you do something for example, in the client's protection, actually it will also be linked to the cash flow, for example. So sometimes it's tricky to say that which pillar is located this innovation or so, but we are trying to just to put the context in each one of the pillars. Okay, so from now on, as I said, the discussion will be really about sharing cases. But before we go to the cases, I just would like to do a very quick poll. It's just one question that we'd like to do about these 5 pillars. So if you think about your organization, so probably at this point, a pop-up message came to the screen, right? So I would imagine that we all have now this screen with a question that's given that it's already 30th of April. Thinking of the 5 pillars that I just presented, at which pillar is your organization currently experiencing the most challenging problem? So you just need to click on one of them and submit. And then in a few seconds, we can just tell what was the result. So please just click in one of these options. And then in a few seconds, we will have the results. Okay, interesting. So 82% of you guys that are participating market cash flow management and financial risks as the main pillar. And then followed by the more generic crisis management, market intelligence, and followed and also clients protection and transparency. Okay, so not a lot of surprise here, right?
You're right.
Really what stand out for everyone. Okay, so maybe Rafael, can you come back to us with some examples from Latin America of how the companies over there are really trying to manage their cash flow, and what are some good examples that you have over there?
Okay, Marco. Yeah, in fact, I have a very good example for that. That's a client of us in Brazil that clearly structured in each of the 5 levels of the crisis management. Just before that, normally people think about the financial pillar, the cash flow one, but it's important to remember that it's just an output of the other 4 levers. So it's in itself, it won't make any easy. It's just going to give you a good view from the future. So I'll explain this case, and at the end of the case, I'm going to show to you what happened with the different cash flow forecast in the beginning of the crisis and nowadays. So it is a retail company, and as we know, one of the most affected industries by the coronavirus. Their sales dropped by 90%, the default rate increased by 8%. In other words, a chaotic situation. Many people face this nowadays, unfortunately. At that point, there was no optimistic forecast that could sustain this scenario. I mean, what can you do in this case? In this case, this is a company. This is a B2B company, and its clients are B2C. So after some discussion in the war room, the CEO launched a strategy to make sure their direct clients get their clients and sustaining their revenues. So instead of focus on itself revenue, he focused on the revenue of its clients. It's a very, it's slightly different, but it's very important, different approach. So they developed a full digital marketing campaign for their direct clients, online trainings, lives using social media, creation of specific direct websites for their clients. All those strategies were focusing on improving the sales of their clients through the digital channel. Well, after this campaign, the income of its clients started to ramp up again, and consequently, his default rate and the demand for his products were getting better outcomes. Obviously, this kind of innovation was not the only change implemented by the commercial team. I mean, the company. It was not only the commercial and marketing that was working also. Focusing on the side of the cash flow lever on the cost side, it was also established a full strategy to implement a flash zero-based budget, reducing the fixed cost to the minimum as possible. On the supplier pillar, they worked a lot to ensure that there would be no issue in the future, near future, with their supply chain or lack of production during the crisis period. Regarding the other pillar, the employee health and monitoring pillar, the communication between the war room and the employees about the company strategy was very, very clear in order to expose the actions, how hard are them, no matter how hard are them, to motivate the team. I mean, we have to use the full transparency in order to make the environment better. Once 70% of the team had to go on annual leave. If you can imagine what would be happening to the other 30% who stayed working at the first moment. Well, after all those actions, nowadays, 45 days since the war room was established, the cash flow forecast for the next 4 to 6 months, compared to what was, compared to the forecast on the cash flow, the first one made 45 days ago, is now 300% higher than at that first moment. This is the outcome of those actions together. So there would be no optimistic forecast in 45 days ago that would show this kind of improvement nowadays. And also the last point is the production nowadays returned to about 70% of its capacity. So it's a very interesting case.
Okay, very interesting, yeah. And it's pure innovation, right? Because they started working with their clients if their clients are doing well, they will do well as well. So that's what happens. So they supported a lot of digital marketing, a lot of online activities for their clients, so they will increase their revenue and will benefit themselves. So it's really clever, very, very good.
I cannot name the company, but the CEO who's watching us knows that it was his company. This best case practice.
Okay, for you CEO that is watching, so it's a very, very good case.
Congratulations.
All right. So yeah, when you talk about the communication topic, actually I have a good example here from Australia as well. One of our clients is a very large smelter located here in New South Wales. For the communication, one of the actions that they are taking is really the CEO decided to hold a weekly video conference with all the employees that are or contractors that are working from home. So that's really interesting. It's not limited just to employees, but everyone, contractors and employees that are working from home. He does a weekly video conference and shares what's the output of the war room, of what they are discussing in their war room, and receiving feedbacks from these people. So we are part of this. We are one of the contractors that are a part of this weekly catch-up, and it's working quite well. It's really, really interesting. Okay, but let's focus on the cases from Europe and Latin America. Maybe Claudia now, if you can share with us some examples of interesting cases in Europe as well.
Yeah, I would like to start sharing with you guys cases about the customer pillar. This case that Rafael just mentioned, it's a good example on how a business partnership must be valid not only during the good times, but also during the hard ones as well. So that's why I believe this pillar is so important, so interesting. The most successful ideas we faced on customer level is when both sides, customer and supplier, work together and try to help each other. There are several examples that our research center put together. I will not be able to mention all of them, so feel free to contact us after the webinar if you want something specific. We have cases since gyms that due to the lockdown measure had to be closed and start not only online classes as everybody did, but they also offered an equipment and accessories renting. So I thought that was an interesting idea. It's a win-win situation because if you use to exercise at a gym, probably you do not have any equipment at home. So you can rent gym equipment accessories. If you want a treadmill, for example, at home, only during this quarantine time, you can get it. So, and the gym with this measure could guarantee some revenue with that. Another one that somehow got my attention was one from a concert hall. It's a campaign named The Show Must Go On. Some cities as London are well known by the huge number of theaters. So can you imagine without living agents, it's really hard for them this time. So they organize a channel on YouTube and put some Broadway plays available online. They let it for a limit of time, a period of time, of course, but it was a way of leveraging the leads at their page and remaining close to their audience in a way that they could save future revenue. With this, they had already achieved more than 1 million followers on YouTube. How much this was. So this customer pillar for me, it's about how can we collaborate and how can we be closer to our customer. Some big retail companies, as Rafael said, start to use WhatsApp or to use some technologies to be closer to the customers. It's about understanding the needs that emerged in the situation and work to surprise our customers with valuable offers. Sometimes you have to change our product or the way that you deliver it. You have to change our process, for example.
Okay, yeah, two very nice examples of innovation linking to the client pillar. Very, very good. Any other example that you would like to share from Europe? about innovation?
A lot of people ask me about innovation. There are some companies that are really recognized for being innovative. You do not need to be Apple or Disney or Alibaba, but you can be innovative yourself. There are several management streams to support on that. And we offer some solutions in this topic as well. But sometimes it's not so easy as it seems. So my suggestion at this time, first, observe the practices around the world and ask yourself which ones could be helpful for your business to get through the crisis. I will give an example from here that mid of March, one beer company started selling vouchers in order to support the restaurants and pubs affected by the lockdown. I don't remember the number by heart, but it was something like that. The final customers pay $5 today and get $10 voucher sponsored by the beer company to spend when the pub open again. The value paid by the final customer guarantees some revenue to the restaurants today and some flow in the future. A month later, another beer company, not at the same market, but it's another beer company, started doing the same. And when we ask them if it's okay to do things like that, they do not have any shame of using the same idea. And they said that doing nothing is much worse than doing a bit later. So both had positive feedback of their customer on adopting these measures. We know that for sure that this support is not enough for the restaurant, but it was a way that the beer company found to show that the relationship between them is important for both of them. They become stronger if they fight together. And this case of a restaurant reminds me another example that I would like to share. It's about a steakhouse chain. So at one hand, they had a large part of its revenue committed to the lockdown. At the other hand, they were able to saw a huge opportunity on installing vending machines with premium raw and meat and drinks in the lobby of residential buildings. Wasn't it a great idea? Nobody can go to the restaurant at this time to try a barbecue, but you can try to do it yourself without spending time lining at the supermarket. So you can have beer and meat anytime just close to you. They surprised their customer, not only offering the takeaway option that, again, everybody did, but they also offer a small market inside the doors. They changed the business for that. They were able to adapt their structure and their process to capture this opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure these examples could be shared anywhere in the world. Yeah. Your example for the beer company. I'm pretty sure the Australians are missing the pub because it's a cultural thing in Australia to go to the pub and so on. So yeah, that's again a very clever idea, shows innovation from the beer company to organize this voucher system, let's say. And the same for the vending machine. Imagine if just having a vending machine with meat and
it's a fridge inside doors.
A fridge in your building. Yeah, no, it's very, very interesting. Okay, and this shows a complete redesign of their sales process. So it's really looking for after crisis. That's already part of the recovery plan, let's say. So we are just getting the attention of these customers that we are helping them now, and with the vouchers and so on, they will continue buying with us in the future. So that's very clever. All right, so Rafael, actually when Claudia talked about this like process redesign for this couple of examples that she shared, I remember that you shared with us as well some a case that you guys, the Aquila team, supported a company to do a complete process redesign from since it started the crisis. So it was everything made from home, everything remote. So can you share this case with us?
Yeah, sure. Talking about the beer case that Claudia just said now, when they have to design a new process to be able to deliver those machines, it's not just as easy as we think when we hear or read something in the internet. I mean, you have to think all the possibilities and all the complications this new process come. I mean, to clarify that, I'm going to speak about a work I have done in our clients. During the last 2 months, the last 2 months, we're all in home office activities. So this project started already in home office. So it was something new, because for us to work in home office in Nakola team, it's quite easy. We do that all days. I had, for example, a project in Brazil, in Latin America, and Claudia was from London taking part on the project many times. So it works it's quite normal for us. But for people in normal companies that are not used to home office, it's a different way. I mean, if you start a project in a company that has lower culture of process, in a home office way, it's very complicated to start this new process without them knowing what to do and how to organize this new process. So one of the biggest mistakes people normally make about home office is to believe that just have to install a VPN and who does not have a computer, get a computer, not a desktop, a couple of softwares and whatever it is, give it to the employee, and the process will run as normally. It's a business as usual again. What people forget that many operational activities will require movement of documentations, activity in specific systems that cannot be done from home. Even some simple activities such as check documentations would be totally different when this part of the process is made 100% by home. In summary, in order to make sure it will be as efficient as possible, the new process in home office should be redesigned, covering all the new critical steps. We are detailing those critical steps because this is the difference, that the small details make the difference. So if you do not pay attention to those small details, the new process won't work. I have a very specific example about this. It's a company from the energy sector in Brazil. We started a business process management program, which is process redesign. And the movement restriction, as I said, was already in place in Brazil. So 100% of it was done in home office environment. We need to establish a working schedule, considering everyone in home office. Another problem is that the focus was on the shared service center that was not working properly. So you can imagine about communication. When the normal status was not working already, how to make something better in a new process in home office way, without the possibility to have that coffee with the guys in the company after the meeting to explain the more details and to get the attention to the details that are important. So sometimes 10 people in a Zoom meeting, and the Zoom meeting is not that easy for talking. But anyway, it had to work. Well, the wrap-up of this project was last week, and the success was even higher than expected because we paid attention to the details. That's very important. One of the highlights from me was the new format of the supervisor function. How to create a new standard operating procedure so the supervisor could remotely manage his team. It's important to understand what is the function of the supervisor. I'm going to ask Claudia, that wrote a book with Mr. Raimundo from Aquila. If I don't forget, it's about a practical guide for managers, where she explained in details that the supervisor position must guarantee the execution of the standard operating procedure. He says one main job. The supervisor must guarantee that the SOP will be followed properly. It's necessary to create different checkpoints when you are in home office situation, because that's not the normal process. So new critical tasks of the process will be different from a normal situation. In fact, it's a whole new way to redesign process. Can you detail a little bit more about the supervising function, please, Claudia? Because this is very important to, in this example, to understand how just adjustment of the process is a new, completely redesigned process.
In the previous normal situation, the supervisors check if the operators are following the procedures. They also need to train. Then, in case of abnormality, the supervisor is responsible for registering and analyzing. In this new normal situation, the functions is still the same, but the process and the technology change. That means that the management maturity level needs to be changed as well. The maturity needs to be higher. You need to implement some points of control among the process. And for that, you will probably need to add some technology to the process. Here in Europe, we had an increase in demand for two main topics: support to accelerate the digital transformation, and training programs to develop new skills and competencies needed to this new normal time. So social distance end up not only bringing companies closer to the customers, but also closer to their employees. One company that was facing remote working for the first time conducted a climate survey aiming to find out how the home office was working. Despite already promoting health tracking, online yoga classes, virtual happy hour, everything that the people are doing now, they felt that they could do even more.
Sorry, virtual happy hour also?
Virtual happy hours of online DJs. So there are several initiatives like that in companies here, but this one got my attention because they sent a questionnaire. And in this questionnaire, there was a one special question, an open one, that was, what else we can do to make this period less stressful for you? And surprisingly or not, the most of the answers were simpler things that the company had not thought yet. One of the employees was positively surprised to have his request granted. While doing the survey, he answered in a joking tone, I really want my chair. I really miss my chair. And 2 days later, the chair was delivered at his house. So this attention to details is also important when we talk about people. So
you mean that he had in the company went to his home?
The chair that he used to use in the company, that he loves the chair, was delivered to home because it was in the office. Nobody was using it. So the company sent to him at home. So cool. Last month, I heard from some of our clients here that have never believed in working from home, that they end up changing their mind. Once they were forced to experiment it, and in this case was really important that the company gave them the right tools and support, after some weeks, they realized that working from home was possible, and in some cases that the team was even more productive than before. And I would say even happier to spend more time with their family. Not all of them, but most of them. And there is another again that a Swiss guy pointed, the meetings with other countries now is finally starting on time. For sure, they were not talking about us, but it was something that the Swiss guy really appreciated. This experiment that we are living and are changing the way that we related not only to customers, employees, but also with suppliers, internal process. We are changing the way that we live. So that's why I believe this attention to details is so important.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, I think that every organization are doing some kind of review in the process at the moment. So for sure, it's the technologies. process, and mainly the relationship between employees, as both of you really mentioned many times. It's really the working from home and how can we make sure that the employees are working happy and so on. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest change that most of the companies around the world are facing since the crisis began. It's really working from home. It's a totally new experience for everyone. So, not everyone. Yeah, we know that some companies used to have some working from home, but yeah, increase it a lot. So it's very important to think differently during the crisis, and we can see many, as you mentioned, many companies really struggling with huge reductions in revenue, or but of course we can also have a lot of good examples of companies that increase it. Not good examples, just taking the opportunity, let's say, during the crisis. And one of them is what we are using at the moment. So we are using the Zoom platform. And I was reading someday that the daily active users from Zoom actually jumped from 10 million daily active users to 200 million. So imagine that jumped from 10 to 200 million daily users just in those the last two to 3 months. So it's incredible how this kind of company actually are really taking as an opportunity, not because they want it, but yeah. Another example that I saw here, this is actually a global initiative that was initiated some weeks ago, and it's a platform. It's many industries, not just one industry, but it's many industries it's taking part of this platform. And the idea of this platform is really to share among them which company needs to hire employees versus the companies that needs that they are standing down employees. So it's really it's made for more large corporations. So it's there is something like I need to if you need at least 100 people, for example, and then there is a pool where you have people that want to hire people companies that wants to that needs not want but needs to stand down employees. So it's quite interesting. A lot of large organizations are part of this, like Walmart, Cargill, Baxter, Marriott, and many other large corporations. So
we saw this here as well. We experiment the same because there are some customers that really, for example, supermarkets here, they were looking for some new people to support all the increase on the revenue. So, and it was hard to them to find the right people. So I listened something about this application. It was really good, this match, because they are able to get the people already with some knowledge on doing that job or what they need for that job.
Yeah, a lot of companies, of course, are doing this already informally. So in Australia, we have an example. As everywhere in the world, the aviation industry is really feeling a lot of the price. So a lot of people are getting out of the aviation industry. And then I saw some news about people coming from aviation to supermarkets, for example. So of course, it's a totally new career and so on. But that's it. The supermarkets, they need more people at the moment. And so it was informally, like what this platform is really making this an easy, as you said, an easy match.
Yeah.
And one thing that was really interesting about this is that from the idea, the platform idea up to the launch, it was only 14 days. So imagine, like I have this idea and then in 2 weeks, it's already online. So amazing.
No bureaucracy, as Rafael
exactly.
at the beginning.
Number 4, quick action. Just do it.
Quick actions, exactly. Do as quick as possible. All right, so I think that's all. It's already 45 minutes now since we started. Actually, 44 to be more precise. I hope that everyone that was as a participant could get some good ideas and to implement their own business, or at least to have some good insights. And of course, if you may need some assistance to restructure your war room, of course, everyone has already some kind of crisis management in place. But if you think you need some assistance to review it and to make it, really to review and think what else can we do in order to make it prepared for the next stage, that's the recovery plan. We are happy to talk with you offline. Here we have our details from myself, Rafael and Claudia. And as I said, we have supported many businesses already during the crisis. So feel free to contact us if you
I'll challenge them, Marco, how to double the cash flow forecast.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I did it triple. Double is easy.
All right, so maybe now we can start the Q&A. I saw that we received here some questions from the participants. So yeah, the idea, and if you want to put some other questions now for all the attendees, please feel free to write it down now. I'll start with one here. Let's see. So in which area should my company first allocate the resource once they are very limited at this period? Is there a prioritization model that defines which process should be prioritized? So who can, maybe Rafael, can you talk about it?
Well, thank you for not an easy question.
Or Claudia, yeah.
No, it's fine. Well, how to prioritize first allocated resource in this limited period, you said. I would say, well, we have three main different approaches on cost management. I mean, resource management. It's better to say that than cost management. And there is no
I think that we lost him. Rafael?
Oh?
Yeah.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah,
okay?
Now it's okay. Yeah.
All right. So there are three different approaches to the resource management. It depends on the level of maturity that you're facing nowadays. So it's not one simple answer. But if you understand the logic behind the zero-based budgeting, we call ZBB, the core of all those three different approaches are in the ZBB. So I would answer that like use the methodology of ZBB to understand how to better allocate the first resource that you have. Why? Because you have to, when you make a ZBB, you must organize your costs based on deliveries, and not only by the nature or responsibility as normal companies do. In that case, it's much easier to prioritize the deliveries we want to put in practice first, then prioritizing nature. And once you did that, you have already to, it's easy to increase or to reduce the costs based on the revenue or on the benefit that you might have in a way that you can protect your cash flow, the current cash flow and the next month cash flow or whatever it is. So it's not an easy answer for this question, but it's important to think about the ZBB program.
Okay, no, interesting, thank you. Another question here. So some locations are already showing signs of a gradual reopening in May. Is it time to build the restart plan? And how can I do it? Yeah, maybe I can start to answer this one. And if you want to add anything, Claudia or Rafael.
Okay.
And that's actually the reality here in Australia at the moment. So I don't know if you guys are following up the number of new cases of coronavirus and so on from our side of the world here. So Australia, New Zealand, and so on. And it's really good what is happening so far, because the number of new cases here it's really, really low. It's some days this week, actually average for the last week, it's something like 10 to 20 new cases every day. I'm not talking about deaths, it's cases, new cases. And they are doing a lot of testing. So it's being already considered that it is already under control, let's say. 1 month ago, it was coming to something like, as it is in some parts of the world now, it was the famous curve was ramping up. So we had here some days with 300 cases, 400 cases in Australia, but at the moment it's really, really low. So everyone is really hopeful that the new normal is coming. And then most companies are already really focused on the recovery plan. Not they were not looking at the recovery plan before, but that's a good focus at the moment. Like, okay, as soon as the restrictions are out, and actually tomorrow here in Australia, it's already Thursday. I know it's Wednesday for you, Rafael, but here it's Thursday. Tomorrow, Friday, the government, Australian government has already said that they will release a lot of restrictions that were in place for the last few weeks. So yeah, it's time to really put the recovery plan in place. So if you think about the first slide that I presented, the 1 to 7 steps, it's really the steps 5 to 7. That's where we need to think about the future, and it's a cycle, right? It's not just 5, 6, 7. It's a cycle. We need to be always reviewing what kind of strategic actions we need to put related to employees or related to technologies or related to processes. So that's a cycle, and we must always have, of course, the cash flow forecast. And here we're talking about daily or weekly forecast for cash flow, and at least three scenarios, right? There needs to be, I think that everyone is doing this, realistic and optimistic and a pessimistic. So we always need to have the 3 scenarios to look at it. Any thoughts, Claudio or Rafael, about the recovery plan?
I believe this is the war room is about that, because the first part of the war room is just the emergency measures, but then you need to think about the future, and the future is next month. In this case, next month we had already some good news that we are reopening some of them, but I don't think that some clients rename that as a restart, but I don't know if it's a restart or if it is a new start, because everything changed. So I don't think the people will be the same after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
I agree with Claudia. It's a new start. It's not going to be like it was before. In some companies, we are already working for this new start. We nowadays redesign the process for the new start. Once the home office process is already done, we are already redesign slowly what's going to be the new process when the crisis is over. I mean, it's not going to be over anyway, but the impacts are going to be lower.
I don't think that the steakhouse will be only a restaurant again. I don't think that your client will change the way that they work back to what was before. So there are several things that will continue after this. There is one interesting question here in Q&A that I would like just to ask Rafael. So there are several of them, but I chose this one because I really thought this one interesting. How are multinational companies dealing with different policies, procedures across the countries for employees, home office, and hard supply chain constraints? So can you both help us with this one?
Maybe I can start with a good example, like.
Thank you, Marco.
So multinational companies, some of our clients, they are multinational. They have operations in parts of the world, and we know that's very tricky. So how, if one country has more restrictions, more lockdown restrictions, what can we do? So that's interesting. One example that we saw from a credit card company. Actually, I think we can name it. It's public. It's American Express. So they have their call center. It's located in the Philippines. And don't know if you guys saw if the news over there, but Philippines are very, very strict at the moment with restrictions. So they are actually put in jail a lot of people that are not really staying at home. And so they have a very, very strict policy at the moment about staying at home. So how can we have the people working in their call centers for American Express? So what they did, they allocated these tasks from the call center in other operations that they have call centers, including Australia. So they have some people in Australia doing the job that the Philippines used to do, and also some people in US. If I'm right. So it's really relocating or sharing the resource. There's also in the other operations that they have. It's not always easy to do that, but yeah, we need to think out of the box and really think, okay, how can we share the resource available everywhere in the world? As us, we have ourselves. It's a good example. Rafael was talking about a project that he involved Claudia. So Claudia was in London, and as we are all using video conference to do our job at the moment, most of us, let's say, it's easy to do this. It's easy to do this interaction among us. So, Rafael, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah. The question. Can you repeat the question again, Claude? I think there was something about.
I can read here, Claudia. So it's, how are multinational companies dealing with different policies or procedures across countries, and then for employees or home office, etc. And also hard supply chain constraints. So we know that the supply chain, we have a lot of constraints for movements and flights and so on, but also for the part of policies and procedures, like for employees and home office and so on. So how multinational companies are dealing with the crisis, let's say.
Okay, yes, about the policy and procedures, it's important to remember that any multinational company has a duality. It has to choose one of those, or you control risks in a very tough way, or you have the most of its rentability. I mean, it's impossible to have the same risk control and the same rentability that's in the country that you start the company. So in that way, the answer to that question is different. If there is a company that is more restricted about risk control, then the policies are going to be more even harder than the local governments authorizing. If there are some flexibility on the risk control and focus more on profitability, then you normally the answer to that question would be to use more local guidance to determine their policy and procedures for the employees and so on. So it's different. There are two main different ways and something in between them.
Okay. Any comment about this one, Claudia?
No, I agree with you guys. I believe that the distance now it's a different concept. We do not have this distance anymore. The people from any part of the country are able to get in contact. If you think about technology, not many things has changed, but the way that we are working now, this become more highlighted.
Yeah.
And nowadays, Marco, about the sharing resources, as the whole world is in the crisis, it's easy to say, Kai, hi, I cannot deliver to you this product because your country is closed, because everyone knows its country is closed. So it's different way. I mean, the partnerships between the companies are getting more and more in a way of partner than a supplier function.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's all right. So we had some other questions here as well, but I don't know. Yeah, we probably don't have enough time. It's 1 minute to go. So, so I'd like to thank you both, Claudia, from being awake up to 2 a.m. So you can always sleep. And Rafael, thanks as well for participating. It's also late in Brazil. It's 10 p.m. So really appreciate you both to be available for us to do this interesting catch up. And I hope that for the attendees, I hope that we will really think about what's the format of this webinar. We first thought about just having a presentation, so just slides and talking about the slides and so on. But we really think that this would be more interesting. So it would be nice as well if you guys could put for the attendees, just put some comments if didn't like the format, or yeah, it was good, let's do it more, and so on, because this was a question that we had. Should we do like a round table, or should we just do a presentation and discuss about the presentation? We thought that this would be more interesting to have a presentation, to have a discussion, and to be really sharing case studies. So that's the format that we think. We are planning to do this kind of webinars regularly. And then to be clear, this was not something that we were very used to, as many companies, but that's normal. That's the new situation. We need to be innovative as well. So we will start doing some more webinars from now on, and including our clients as well. So not just us from Aquila, but having some of our clients in the room with us, so they can really share by their mouth what is the kind of innovation they did after the crisis. So. All right, so thank you everyone. Also for all the international attendees that from other parts of the world as well, not just the ones that but we had, as I said, we had people from New Caledonia, we had people from Bolivia, people from Colombia, Peru. So we have people from many other parts of the world as well. So thanks everyone for being part of this webinar. Claudia, do you want to add something?
Just follow us, then you have the
yeah.
calendar.
And this is being recorded and it is in YouTube. So anyway, you can check later. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.